of the Constitution, the existing Constitution, is a revised version of what was in the 1980 Constitution, which was more elaborate, and it was attempted to give the citizenry involvement in the political process. Article 13 was revised in the revision process, and as I said, stripped of its socialist content. But the main purpose has not been achieved in terms of the involvement of civil society. And the problem therein lies in who will represent civil society, which are the organizations that can claim to represent civil society. And as a result of that unanswered question, Article 13 has never been given any kind of effect, and it remains just an article in the Constitution unfulfilled. How is the civil society going to be represented on that body? How are they going to be chosen? Who represents civil society for the purposes of the
Article 13?
Article 13.
If I may kindly say this, traditionally, the political system as we know it all too well, and my perspective on this, they have co-opted all of the roles within a sovereign state. As you can see within this Cooperative Republic of Guyana system, political system, traditionally this is what they have done. Here it is now, the Guyana National Council of Public Policy, recognizing that we want a different sort of democracy. We want to hone and uphold. We want the society. And let me just say this, get a little step back. Let me say a little step back. When I look at the present political system and look at the operatives, everyone seemed to be so entrenched with some venomous, virulent animosity against each other, the way that they, coagulate among themselves. You hear them variously. And when they do this, they always seem to reference what I consider to be our founding fathers. Is as if they're propagating and ensuring a sustainable existence of what the founding fathers have given us and what they did. If you look back in time, sir, what you and the founding fathers have done for us, you did it well given the existence of the present time. But I always say that maybe the Honorable Chetty Jagan and Forbes Burnham and all of those, they're probably having some whiskey laughing at us because they're saying, we know nothing about information superhighway, right? If you look at the time when they were bringing into being, and they've done it so well. So where is the independence of thoughts to create real sustainable change and development? I always speak about the baton that we are to receive. I speak of the baton as being very pimple-ridden. We as a generation, many individuals in the society do not recognize or even know the history behind a Forbes Burnham and a Chetty Jagan, but those that are within the seat of power in government, they never seem to have any independence of thoughts given what is happening in this dispensation, in this present time, so that we can have a very formidable, clear, competitive advantage with the rest of the world. So what do we do as a generation? We want to see a different interplay of things. Article 13.
Let me go to Article 13. Yeah. I'd like to punctuate Dr. Thomas because he had senior counsel here and then he knocked him for 6. With respect, for my vendors, students of secondary schools, even their teachers, and for those who don't normally bother. Senior Counsel Pollard, this is what it says today. The principal objective of the political system of the state, you hear me, students, is to establish an inclusionary democracy. They took out socialist democracy.
Right.
By providing increasing opportunities, let's deal with what we have, Senior Counsel, for the participation of citizens. They say by providing increasing opportunities for the participation of citizens and their organizations in what? In the management and decision-making processes of the state. Does that happen? With particular emphasis on those areas of decision-making that directly affect your well-being. I go back to this. Increasing opportunities for the participation of citizens and their organizations in the management and decision-making processes of the state. Citizens and their organizations. Article 13, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Your reservation again, BRYNMOR, Pollard?
Very laudable intention. But the problem is, how does one give effect to Article 13?
Why
And that
can't
has
it give effect?
well, that has avoided the decision makers since the introduction of the Constitution.
They say here citizens and their organizations.
That's right. How are the representatives of the citizens going to be chosen? This is the stumbling block.
I see. Because I heard Dr. Rupert Ryan, I've heard Christopher Ram, I've heard critics and others allude to this article.
very
that
laudable.
This is where we will come
That's
in.
right.
And court cases have been launched using this. The TUC used this. But again, from my simple mind, sir, your reservation
My
lies in
reservation, how are they going to be represented on this body? They have to be chosen. And chosen by whom? Because there are so many organizations representing civil society.
So can civil society sit down with the Gncpp or some?
You come back to my point.
And decide, look, we are going to.
But
approach
we
the
who?
state. We
Who will
when we
represent?
decide
No, no, no,
amongst
no, 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 no.
ourselves.
You have to decide on the organizations that constitute civil society. Trade unions, who else? Bodies representing women. There are so many.
There are
40 of them,
right.
precisely.
Right, there are a
Therein,
number.
that is my problem. Therein lies the problem.
So how would you respond, Dr. Thomas?
Let me give,
Senior Counsel.
I've given one example about the way the political system has not given what you call effect
That's right.
and respect to civil society. And I spoke about the way the Elections Commission is constituted.
Just let me make an intervention, and as a result of that, Article 13 has not been implemented.
Indeed.
Bear that in mind.
Here, be as it may, here comes the Guyana National Council of Public Policy to ensure the implementation of Article 13. But let me also bring this to you to bear. Just prior to the elections, several civil society groups and individuals that included a group of concerned religious elders, the Guyana Trades Union Congress, the Guyana National Council on Public Policy, we instituted, through our advocacy and program department, a lawsuit, the lawsuit that we brought against the political system under the auspices of Article 13, in specifically not limited to that. And the reason the Guyana Trades Union Congress was involved in there, the Constitution specifically provides for and has constitutionalized a subvention to the Guyana Trades Union Congress. If you understand the functions of the Guyana Trades Union Congress, it's involved in education, the Cultural Labor College and all this stuff. The government deconstitutionalized or took away that subvention, the serious detriment and effect that that had on a wide-ranging set of individuals, people who come from riverine areas, very poor families and kids, who may have had difficulties in high school, who were going to, even Minister Robert Prasad, I understand, had the privilege
Yes, he passed
of
through.
going to the Critchlow Labour
You're
College.
saying that in this Constitution, 2003, as amended 2003, there is some article dealing with the subvention for the Critchlow Labour College?
No, there's not.
No. Let me repeat this.
Talk about deconstitutionalizing.
The 1980 Constitution provides for subvention, specifically for subvention to trade unions.
Which provision is that?
There is the provision there in the Constitution there
like
for
it.
trade unions. They do provide that, and the government at the time took away this subvention from so the detriment that is being suffered even to present day. And then what you have seen happen is that the government got involved with setting up and supporting these type of organizations.
Yeah, may I make
Bec-
an intervention here?
Yes, sir.
I'm yet to be convinced about this point with regard to giving a subvention to I don't think the Constitution makes provision for that at all.
The Constitution makes provision for subvention to trade unions.
Does it?
It does. It makes subventions for, I think it's Article
No.
212,
But
if
then
I
you-
may kindly,
But then
Article
you come back to
212.
this then. If the subvention is no longer provided for, that must be a breach of the Constitution.
Indeed, and that's what we have alleged in the lawsuit. This is why the Guyana Trades Union Congress have joined into the lawsuit. Also, another thing, there were many church schools which the government took over. And the government, they handed back these schools
Yes.
to the churches in a very deplorable state of disrepair. There are no schools functioning in those schools. They just sit there. We feel as though that in of itself, it's a violation of our right, constitutional right, to an education from primary to secondary, and you know all too well, the Constitution provides for that. So if the government takes these institutions, they destroy them and give them back to the church, and we are not able to have the opportunity to use these facilities. This is when in our lawsuit, when we say the group of concerned religious elders, this is what they have pointed out. You're right? So when you speak about Article 13 and the giving of effect to it, it's not only that there's no effect given to Article 13, but there have been a lot of contraventions that took place, right? Where the responsibility the government has to civil society falls under Article 13, and they have denigrated, castrated, and cut off totally the obligations that were constitutionalized.
Civil society, I'm sure you're advocating, should then revert to what the Constitution provides, however minimal sometimes, before there is further reform. Civil society should take up the cudgel either through litigation or, well, we don't go protesting, but advocacy. We've explored a bit Article 13. Are there any other articles you'd like to bring to the attention or to get from the senior counsel his views? 50?
Well, yes, see, Article 50 of the
I
Constitution.
remember 50, I had to learn it as a young teacher.
Yeah, Article 50 of the Constitution, it speaks about the
The supreme,
The supreme organ of democratic power.
That sounds like Mr. Burnham. And I noticed you put Parliament at the bottom there.
And the way it's listed, if you go back to the 1980 Constitution, the old
which
Constitution.
we have here. This is what you should be doing,
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls in your organizations. Explore your Constitution now, because it impacts upon you, and we don't bother with it. We have to live. I know we have to buy the kerosene oil and the butter, but we have to have our representatives, even your MPs. I wonder how many of them have explored the Constitution, as the GNCPP will motivate others to do. I remember 13 here as a young teacher saying here that the supreme
Organs, Article 50.
50, yes, organs of democratic power shall be the Parliament, the National Congress of Local Democratic Organs, NCLDO, the Supreme Congress of the People, shades of China, the President and the Cabinet.
Now, let me say something.
In 2003, it was revised.
It was revamped.
Revamped to say the Parliament, the supreme organs of democratic power are now the Parliament, the President, and the Cabinet. Now, my layman's observation here, until I ask you or senior counsel to come in, it says in the new, well, the revised, altered Constitution, the Supreme...
Unconstitutionally altered.
Okay, that's a whole discussion by itself. The supreme organs of democratic power in Guyana shall be the Parliament, the President, the Cabinet. But my layman's observation is this. The Parliament consists of the President and the National Assembly.
You're absolutely
This
correct.
is where it is. So he has two mentions here in a way.
Yeah.
Over to you, yes.
Yeah. Senior Counsel Pollard, would you like to make a comment on that kindly?
Well, I suppose the only reason why they put the president is because he has a constitutional function to